I read 17 books in January. I DNF'd one and I had 5 5-star reads. Let me tell you all about them. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Carly and today I'm going to be talking to you all about the books I read in January. And let's just say I had an absolutely fantastic start to 2026. I usually average around 20 books a month, so I did read slightly less books than I usually would. I had a very busy start to the year actually. I was very sociable, very unlike me. I was away for 2 weekends and I had 2 author events. So, I mean, I feel absolutely burnt out at this point from all that socialising. Now, don't get me wrong, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows in January. There were a few disappointments in there. But yeah, overall, I did have an absolutely fantastic month. And I cannot wait to tell you all about the books that I read. As always, we're going to start with the negatives, get the negatives out of the way. So we'll start with I only had 1 DNF. We'll start with that. Then go up 2-star, 2.5-star, 3-star, all the way up. And then I'll finish the video with my 5-star reads of the month. So I think I'm just going to leave the intro there because these videos always end up taking me so long to film because I don't stop bloody talking. So yeah, I'm just going to leave the intro there and I'm going to dive straight into the books. Hello, my friends. This is editing me. I bloody knew a short intro was too much to ask for. It's too good to be true. I forgot to tell you about my TBR jar, like how my TBR jar went. It was the first month I used it. I picked 10 books in total, didn't I? So for anybody that hasn't seen my TBR jar video from January, I picked 6 prompts out of the jar and then I picked 4 other books. One was a book over 500 pages, one was a proof copy, one was a 5-star prediction, and the other was my book club book for the month. And out of those 10 books from my planned TBR, I read 8. And I actually think that's really good. You know, initially I was like, oh, I'm gutted I didn't get to read all 10. But I didn't read as many books as I usually read in a month because I was so busy anyway. And also, this was my first month having a planned TBR as a massive mood reader. So I think 8 out of 10 is not too bad. The only books I didn't get to were my 5-star prediction, which was The Beekeeper of Aleppo. I did start listening to that on audio and I couldn't get on with the narration. So I paused it and then just didn't have time to go back to it. And the other one I didn't have chance to get to was The Ending Writes Itself. That was my proof copy by Evelyn Clark. But I read Body of Lies instead, which was another proof copy because I literally dropped everything to read that as soon as it landed on my doorstep. So yeah, I read 8 out of 10 books from my TBR jar video and I'm actually quite happy with that. So I thought I would just insert that here and I'll stop yapping now and I'll leave you enjoy the rest of the video. First off, we have my very first DNF of 2026 and it's The Brides by Charlotte Cross. Now, I think I've spoken a few times on my channel about how excited I was to read this book. So I'm absolutely gutted that it ended up being a DNF. This book is about the brides of Dracula. It's been marketed as creepy, sumptuous and incredibly gripping. It's a feminist Gothic horror debut about the 3 women who became the brides of Dracula. I mean, that is right up my street. I absolutely love anything feminist, anything Gothic. I love horror. I love vampires. So yeah, I was so excited about this book. And unfortunately, it just wasn't working for me at all. I got to page 100, which I feel like is a good chunk of the book. I mean, it's quite a long book, actually. It's nearly 400 pages. Let's see where 100 pages is. It doesn't actually look that much when it's in a chunky book, but I got about that far into it. I mean, in my defense, the writing is absolutely tiny. So it's probably more like double that with the tiny writing. And you know what? First off, the prologue, I had chills reading the prologue. I'm actually going to read you a tiny bit of the prologue. It's like a couple of sentences just at the bottom. Come here, my love, she whispers in her siren's voice. Come to me and kiss me and we will be together forever. She moves closer, holding out her cold white hand. Is this not what you have always wanted? Come to me and be mine for eternity. And you know what? When I read that, I was like, yes, like slapping my leg, fist pumping, like this is going to be phenomenal. But I really didn't like the way it was written. So it's actually written through mixed media, which usually I absolutely love. But I found it very disjointing to read. So it's like letters back and forth. There were quite a few characters as well. And it may just be a me problem, but I did not have a clue what was going on. I didn't really get who was who. I also feel like the writing style itself was quite disjointed. Sometimes certain writing styles just aren't for you, and that's okay. Like, I usually don't mind a slow burn Gothic, but for me to stay invested, something has to grip me. And unfortunately in this book, nothing gripped me at all, apart from the last bit of that prologue. But after that, I was gone, absolutely lost me. So yeah, very disappointed about this. And I'd be interested to see where the review, like what the reviews look like once this book is released in March. I'm wondering if it is just me. I mean, it usually is just me, but yeah, that was my one and only DNF in January. And next up is a book that I haven't actually rated, and I don't think I'm going to rate it because I still haven't decided whether I absolutely loved it or absolutely hated it. And that is Bunny by Mona Awad. This is honestly the weirdest book I have ever read. And I've read some weird books, let me tell you. It kind of gave me like culty Alice in Wonderland, Clueless, Craft vibes. And most of the time I felt like I was tripping or in this weird fever dream, and I didn't have a clue what was going on. Very similar to The Brides, to be honest. I just didn't have a clue what was going on. Also, I quite liked the writing style. It was quite addictive to read. It was very, I don't know, just like, I don't even know how to describe it, but I did find the writing style very addictive. However, the amount of times that the word bunny is said or written, I found that quite jarring. You know, like if you had to take a shot for every time you see the word bunny, you would literally be dead after reading this book, because it is literally like, oh, it's very repetitive. Let's just say that. And you know what? I'm actually going to read you like a little bit of the opening page of this. I promise I'm not going to do this for every book, but this is just going to give you a feel for what I mean by the writing style and how many times bunny is said. So this is literally page 1, chapter 1. We call them bunnies because that is what they call each other. Seriously, bunny. Example, hi bunny. Hi bunny. What did you do last night, bunny? I hung out with you, bunny. Remember, bunny? That's right, bunny. You hung out with me and it was the best time I ever had. Bunny, I love you. I love you, bunny. Like, what? What on earth? Like, I don't know. I think if I'm really, really honest with myself, I don't think I liked it, but I don't know. It is a very, very strange book to read and experience. I am glad I've read it, but I just don't know who I would ever recommend it to. Somebody who doesn't mind reading the word bunny about 27,000 times in a book, I guess. So yeah, unsure what to rate this one, so didn't bother giving it a rating. It's definitely one of those books that you read and you just sit there staring at a wall after you've finished it because you're like, what on earth just happened? So yeah. Right, on to my only 2-star read of January, and I actually feel really bad about this one. This was actually recommended to me by Lisa Jewell herself. It's Lie With Me by Sabine Durrant. And when I interviewed Lisa last month and asked her, what is one book that you wouldn't hesitate to recommend to readers? This was the book that she mentioned. And unfortunately, this one just didn't work for me either. It's a very short book. It's around 300 pages. And it's a thriller book. And it's all about this guy called Paul Morris, who is a pathological liar, basically. And I think instantly that's what didn't work for me in the book. Sometimes I like unreliable narrators and I like a character who is a liar. And I don't know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. In this book, it didn't work for me because I absolutely couldn't stand Paul, the main character. He was an absolute pig. And I think when a book is told from the perspective of this main character and you don't like him, it's very hard to, I don't know, just stay connected to the rest of the story. I didn't really care what happened to him. Do you know what I mean? So I started to lose interest. So yeah, Paul has always been a liar, and he meets this very wealthy woman and lies to her about his job and about him owning a house and everything in order to try and slide into her life because she's very wealthy and has a lot of money, you know? There's also a holiday to Greece, so you've got like a bit of a destination thriller element. And there's a side plot all about the 10-year anniversary of a disappearance of this young girl. And to be honest, for a book that is quite short, 300 odd pages, it felt like it just went on forever. I found the pacing very, very slow. And sometimes, like I said with the Brides, I don't mind a slow burn when there's tension and you're like, you know, like the creeping dread, and you're interested and invested enough to want to carry on reading. But for me, this was slow burn, painfully slow burn. And I hated the main character and I didn't care. So I think in hindsight, I probably should have DNF'd it, but because it was short, I thought, oh, well, I may as well carry on reading. Now, the reason I've given it 2-star and not 1-star is because I did think the twist at the end was quite clever. But by that point, I felt like I just read my way through it. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, 2 stars didn't really work for me, but it may work for you if you don't mind a slow burn and you don't mind an absolute pig of a main character who lies. Then I had 1 2.5-star read, which was The Nowhere Child by Christian White. Is it Christian White? This was my first book of the month and my first book of the year. And I can remember thinking to myself, well, that's a bloody great start to the year, isn't it? I've had a 2.5-star read to start my year. Now, initially, I didn't mind this. So I'm just going to read you a tiny bit of the blurb because I can remember reading this. I'm sure I spoke about this. Was this in like my American book haul or something? And I can remember reading the top bit of the blurb and being like, oh my God, it sounds so good. So it says, you stare at the picture. It shows a missing child who was abducted from her home 20 years ago. But the kidnapped child doesn't just look like you, she is you. So this follows the story of our main character called Sammy, who is approached by a stranger. And he shows her this photo. And yeah, she begins to realise that actually she's this missing child. Sammy lives in Australia and the girl that went missing from America. So as you can imagine, like it kicks off straight away. And I was hooked. I really, really liked it first off. So after Sammy is shown this photograph, she ums and ahs over what to do. She doesn't want to upset her family that she lives with in Australia, but also, as anybody would be, she's very curious about what happened to her as a child. So she ends up going back to America. And that's kind of like where this investigation into her life starts. Now, like I said, initially, I was hooked right in and I was very interested to see and find out what had happened to Sammy. Like this whole disappearance thing, I love anything like that. And I do think when I first started it, it felt a little bit different with the whole, like, can you imagine somebody giving you a photo of a missing girl from America and it turns out that you are that missing girl? Absolutely wild. But I feel like quite early on, again, this is another one I should have just DNF'd, to be honest. The story started fizzling out and I started losing interest. I started just not wanting to pick it up. And also I started to get really distracted by the racial and homophobic slurs in the book. And I thought it's just really unnecessary. It didn't add anything to the story. So that put me off. And I just don't think the ending was satisfying enough to give this book a higher rating. So yeah, honestly, I was just so bloody gutted about this. I was so excited to read it, so excited by the premise of it. But yeah, unfortunately, it didn't work for me. Then I had 1 3-star read, which was The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. This is another US import because how bloody stunning is that cover? Now, this has been, it literally says at the top, a vivid reimagining of one of literature's most twisted love triangles. So it's based on Jane Eyre. Now, I absolutely bloody loved Jane Eyre. I studied it in university when I did my English literature degree many, many years ago. And it stayed with me ever since. Absolutely loved it. So I was very interested to see how it would play out in a more modern setting. So we've got Jane, our main character. We've got Eddie Rochester. And you know what? That is one of the reasons this book didn't really work for me, because the fact that Edward Rochester has been called Eddie Rochester in this book just gave me the ick. Every time I read it, I was like, this is actually making me feel a little bit sick. I really didn't like it. And then Eddie Rochester's previous wife is called B-E-A. So you've got the same sort of names as Jane Eyre and a very similar story. Jane is a dog walker in a very affluent area, and she meets Eddie Rochester. She starts walking his dog for him. There's a mystery surrounding Eddie Rochester's previous wife. And you know what? It was okay. Like, it was okay to read. But I just found, like I said, the fact that he's called Eddie Rochester gave me the ick, and I just couldn't get past that. The pacing was very slow as well. I found how this is like just over 300 pages as well. And I felt like this book went on forever. There was a slight sense of creeping dread, which is probably what kept me interested enough to carry on reading. I did like the twist. I did really like the twist, but I can't comment on what I liked about it because otherwise it would be a massive spoiler. So yeah, gave this 3 stars. Didn't hate it. I liked it. I thought it was okay, and I would still recommend it. So yeah, love the cover anyway. Next up is my only 3.5 star read, and then all the rest are 4 and 5 stars. So honestly, I did have an incredible month. Where I was going to say we're almost over with the negativity. This wasn't like awful, and I would still recommend it. It is a Gothic book set in Victorian London, and I haven't got a physical copy. I read this on my Kindle. It's actually available on Kindle Unlimited. And what drew me in was, at the top of the blurb, it says, a dark Gothic tale for fans of The Clockwork Girl and The Woman in Black. And then it says, I'm actually going to read you a little bit of the blurb because a lot happens in this book, and I do feel like the blurb is going to do a better job than I can. So it's about a woman called Ivy Granger. She is an amateur botanist. Her mother has taught her all about plants and everything. She is plagued by disturbing dreams and faceless whispers. Misunderstood by her father, she fears for her sanity, threatened with the asylum or worse, the hands of a man she loathes. But a stranger at her mother's funeral reveals Ivy's world has been a lie and she could have a different life, for she is capable of so much more. So this spiritualist called Miss Earnshaw approaches Ivy at her mother's funeral, and she basically tells her that she's gifted and that if she wants to live a different life, if she wants a better life, then she must immediately come to London. She must drop everything, and Miss Earnshaw will show her the ropes. Then Ivy ends up at this house called Blackham House, and there's a room in this house that is full of very macabre things. There's lots of supernatural vibes. There's lots of seances, lots of spiritualism. And overall, I did like it. Like, I really clicked with the writing style in this book. But after 50%, I feel like the story just fizzled out a little bit, and it just wasn't holding my attention as much as the first half was. For me, the pacing slowed down a lot, and then the big reveal actually felt very rushed. And I don't know, sometimes I just think you'd be better off having a slightly shorter book, keeping the pacing going, and I don't know, just not throwing all these reveals at the reader right at the end. You know what I mean? So yeah, not awful. 10 out of 10 for creepy Gothic atmosphere, but 6 out of 10 for overall reading enjoyment. And now on to my 4-star reads. I actually had 7 4-star reads. So as well as 5 5-stars, I had 7 4-stars. I actually think that may be one of my best reading months for quality that I ever had. I don't really know. Starting with I Know Who You Are by Alice Feeney. So I only have one more book left from Alice Feeney's backlist, and I can do a full ranking video for you. I'm so excited. I have seen very mixed reviews about this book, which is probably why I put it off for so long. This is Alice Feeney's second book, I believe. Sometimes I lie as the first one, and I think this is her second book. And it follows the story, I can't remember her name. I was going to say Alice then, but that's the author. It follows the story of Amiee, who comes home from work and discovers that her husband is missing. She phones the police. The police immediately think she's hiding something. She is hiding something, but it's not what everybody thinks. She's got secrets from the past. And as the book goes on, these secrets start coming back to haunt her. Now, in classic Alice Feeney style, we have a very unreliable narrator. And like I was talking about with Lie With Me by Sabine Durrant, I love an unreliable narrator when I like the narrator, like when I like the character. I absolutely loved Amiee, straight off. I loved that as the reader, we didn't really know whether or not we should trust what she was telling us. I actually did half of this on audio as well, and I would highly recommend the audio. It's available on BookBeat. This video isn't sponsored at all, but I do have a link in the video description for a free trial with BookBeat. So if you're wanting to give that a go, then yeah, give it a go. Honestly, I really, really enjoyed the audio. The narrator was fantastic. So Amiee is more of an unreliable narrator than usual because she has amnesia because of childhood trauma. So she doesn't actually remember a lot of what's happened. So when the police are coming to question her about where her husband is, she can't remember. She can't even remember what's happened because of, yeah, this amnesia. She's also an actress. So again, you're thinking, is she playing her role very well? Because that's her job. I also just feel like toxic relationships, and just toxic, not necessarily like partner relationships, but like any sort of familial, is that the word? Relationships, is just Alice Feeney's jam. She just knows how to write a toxic relationship so well. I actually went to see her last month and this came up and she said that she just loves writing about conflict, like conflict within families and stuff. And you can definitely tell. To be honest, I'm not really going to say too much more about the plot, but I was very pleasantly surprised. The only thing I will say actually is this book is dark. It is a lot darker than I thought it was going to be. There is a scene with animal cruelty in it as well. So make sure you're checking any trigger warnings, like before you go into it. But honestly, I actually listened to some of these scenes on audio and I was stood there icing my cakes, just in case you're new to my channel. That's what I do. Like, that's my job. And I literally had to pause what I was doing. And I was like, so yeah, like I said, very pleasantly surprised. And I'm very, very confused by the mixed reviews because I absolutely loved it. My next 4-star read was Junie by Erin, Crosby, Eckstine. And this book follows the story of a 16-year-old girl called Junie who lives with her family working as slaves on a plantation in Alabama. Junie spends her day tending to the master's daughter called Violet. And they actually read books together and read poetry, and they have quite a nice relationship. However, a wealthy family comes to stay at the house and they threaten to upend Junie's whole life because there's talk of marriage, talk of Violet marrying one of the members of this family, which means that if Violet marries and goes to stay at a new house, Junie, as her slave, must go with her. In complete desperation at the situation she's found herself in, Junie ends up summoning her sister's spirit from the grave. Her sister Minnie gives her tasks that she must complete in order to release her sister's spirit. Do you know what? A lot happens in this book. It is absolutely packed with, yeah, it's like 350 pages and so much goes on. Now, I went into this book, I honestly thought it was going to be a 5-star read. And the only reason it wasn't is because I really, really wanted more of the story between Junie and her sister's ghost. I wanted it to be more ghosty. So the scenes between Junie and her sister's ghost very much gave like The Reformatory by Tananarive Due vibes. And I absolutely loved it. I loved the interaction between the two. I was very invested in what had happened to her sister Minnie. I was invested the whole way through. I did really, really enjoy the book. But I just wanted more ghost. I just wanted more of the ghost story because that's what I went into it expecting. Maybe it's my own expectations and I went into it with the wrong expectations. But apart from that, I absolutely loved it. It is a very, very sad story. I loved Junie. I loved her determination and oh, she was just such a fierce character, such a fierce, brave character. And that's all I'm going to say because I don't want to spoil anything at all. But yeah, highly recommend. Just maybe adjust your expectations if you're expecting it to be really ghosty. My next 4-star read was my book club pick for January, The Frozen River by Ariel Lawhon. So this was my in-person book club pick. We actually did book club in January as part of our reading retreat. I have posted a vlog of our reading retreat. It was absolutely incredible. And it was also my online book club's pick. So if you'd like to join my online book club, the link to that is in the video description. So yeah, this book is a historical fiction. It is based on a true story. It's set in the 18th century in Maine, and it follows the story of Martha Ballard, who was a midwife. And one day a body is discovered beneath the frozen river. Martha examines the body. She suspects that foul play is at hand. She thinks he's been murdered. However, there's obviously a male doctor saying that absolutely not. There was no foul play at hand here. He dismisses all of Martha's claims. And the rest of the book is basically Martha struggling and fighting to get her voice heard. So this male doctor absolutely infuriated me. The whole time I was reading, I literally wanted to like punch the book because I was like, oh my God, he was making me so mad. I found Martha's character absolutely fascinating, especially knowing that she was a real person. So Martha kept diary entries like all about what the weather was like during that day. She would record the deaths and the births. Now, this is another one I went into expecting it to be a 5-star read. And the reason it wasn't a 5-star is because, if I'm being completely honest, I found the pacing of it to be painfully slow. I thought it was going to be fast-paced and exciting. Again, maybe it was just me going in with the wrong expectations, but it was an absolute slog to get through at times. The ending, however, massively saved it for me, which is the reason I ended up giving it 4 stars. So overall, I would definitely recommend it. I like I said, absolutely loved Martha as a character. I did love the murder storyline, you know, like finding out what happened to this guy, because he actually, the dead guy beneath the river, had actually been accused of rape previously by a woman in the town. So it was all linked to that. There was also another influential man in the community who was an absolute pig of a man. And you know what? There's a quote in this book, and I can't say it because I think it would be a spoiler. But when I read it, I literally fist pumped the air because I was like, oh my God, what an absolute legend Martha is. I don't know if she said it in real life because we'll never know, will we? But oh, that was just chef's kiss. My next 4-star read was my chunker of the month, The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. So I actually cheated a little bit because I did it on audio. I had heard that the audio was really good. So I thought, right, I'm just going to stick it on while I'm working and yeah, see how it goes. So this book follows the story of a young girl called Liesel. It is set during Nazi Germany, set in 1939, is it? Yeah, 1939 Nazi Germany. Liesel is 9 years old. Her parents have been taken to a concentration camp and she is currently living in Himmel Street, is it called? With her foster family. Now, Liesel is an absolutely incredible character and I loved her instantly. I tell you what else I loved about this book is that it's narrated by Death. So it's a very unique POV. And yeah, it's all about the relationship between Liesel and Death. Like if you look at the cover, it's like Liesel holding Death's hand. Now, Liesel is known as the book thief because she steals books. She loves books and she wants to learn how to read. Now, obviously, it's very sad to read. It is set during World War II. There are some very uncomfortable scenes in it. The reason this was a 4-star and not a 5-star is because it just didn't blow me away as much as I thought it was going to. I've put in my little notes, I always write notes on my phone to help me when I'm doing my reading wrap-ups, that I can't put my finger on it, but it just didn't blow me away like I thought it was going to. But having thought about it a little bit more, I've come up with some theories. So first of all, I actually think I would have been better off reading this physically rather than on audio, because there's a lot of, I don't know, it's like, I don't know if I can show you now. It's broken up. There's like little pictures in there. Can you see how it's like broken up? There's like a lot of German in there. And on audio, I actually found it quite jarring. One of the main characters, Liesel's foster mother, she swears a lot in German, which is absolutely fine. Like, I haven't got anything against that. But I just found it quite jarring to listen to. And then, like, Death was constantly telling you what it meant. And I feel like that it was quite disjointed to listen to, and it kept bringing me away from the story. Now, what I will say is I read this while I was ill, listened to it while I was ill. And I don't know if it's just because I had less patience, because I felt horrendous. I had a chest infection. I felt awful. So yeah, 4 stars overall. I still really liked it, and I would definitely recommend it, but just wasn't as incredible as I thought it was going to be. Do you know what I mean? Just for me personally. My next 4-star read was The Carnival of Curiosities by Amiee Gibbs. And oh my God, this book. So it's all about a Carnival of Curiosities, funnily enough. It has the most incredible characters in it, very vivid characters. It did kind of remind me a little bit of Freak's Law by Jane Flett, which has a carnival setting, very similar. There's Lucian the Lucifer, who can create fire. The guy that runs the whole show, Aurelius Ash, I think his name is. He's rumoured to be not just your average magician, and for the right price, he can make any wish come true. You've got a Victorian London setting. You have got gangsters. Honestly, this book, I was so bloody excited to read this book. What I will say is, up to the 30% mark, I struggled with it a little bit. There are a lot of characters, and I really struggled to keep track of who was who, what their abilities were, and what was going on. But after this 30% mark, all of a sudden something just clicked. The pacing picked up. I was so invested. I was so excited. I could imagine this whole world, like this carnival. I could imagine the shows they were putting on. It was just so vivid and atmospheric to read. It was full of suspense. I absolutely love a Victorian setting, especially a carnival setting. I think I have said on my channel multiple times about how much I love the Victorian era. And you know what? I know this is going to make me sound a little bit strange. I'm all right with that. But when I wasn't reading this book, I was actually dreaming about it. Like, I was dreaming about the trapeze artists, and it literally like took over my life while I was reading it. So overall, a solid 4-star read. I absolutely loved it. The only reason it wasn't a higher rating is because, in my opinion, I don't think it needed to be as long as it is. It's like 450 odd pages. And I just don't think it needed to be that long. But apart from that, absolutely loved it and highly recommend. My next 4-star read was Dead Ground by M.W. Craven. Is this book 4? I think this is book 4 in the Washington Post series. I've lost track of how many books I've read now. So for anybody that doesn't know, the Washington Post series follows Detective Washington Poe and his sidekick Tilly. And it's very like police procedural. They solve crimes and murders and all the rest of it. And I absolutely love this series. It is very underrated in my opinion. So this opens with a heist gone a little bit wrong. So you've got that storyline, and then you've got a separate storyline where Poe has been called to a crime scene where this guy has been beaten to death in a brothel. And there's this strange animal ornament that's been left at the scene. So it's all about them investigating that, basically. And you know what? Straight away, this book had me in stitches. And I know that's going to sound strange as well, because it's a thriller book and it's about not very nice things. But Tilly and Poe together are absolutely hilarious. Some of their one-liners. Do you know what? I actually started reading the next one in the series last night. It's called The Botanist. I think I'm about 20% into it. So obviously I'll talk to you about that in my February reading wrap-up. But again, absolutely screaming, laughing, like giggling while I'm in bed reading. They are so funny together. And I think this is why I love this series so much, because it's not just murder and crime and police procedural. Like, our main 2 characters have cracking personalities. I mean, there's not really much more to say about it. I do feel like you need to read these books in order. So yeah, start with book 1, which is The Puppet Show, and work your way through, because there is character development. And I don't think, you'd get the same from them if you read them as standalones. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, absolutely loved it. And the only reason, again, that this wasn't a higher rating is because I don't think it needed to be as long. This is like 440 pages, which I think is quite long for a thriller book, isn't it? But apart from that, bloody loved it. And my last 4-star read of the month before I move on to my 5-star reads was The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. I actually got this recommendation from Sinead Hannah. I will tag her channel in the comments because she said it works really well on audio because there's podcast elements. And I agree. I absolutely love a podcast element in an audiobook. So this follows the story of Maddie, and the podcast is called Maddie Did It, or something like that anyway. And the whole book is basically, is it like a reworking, a retelling of Carrie? Maddie is a biracial teenager. She is being bullied by the other students in the school, and it's very Carrie-esque. So the tension builds, the bullying gets worse. This book very much highlights racism within schools, and yeah, it's like told through this podcast, looking back to an event that happened during a school prom. So you kind of get like the present day podcast, and then you get throwbacks to what actually happened in the lead up to this big event that happened in school. And you know what? I absolutely loved it. I loved Maddie's character. I loved the build of tension throughout, the build of suspense. Like, you knew, if you know Carrie, you know exactly what's going to happen. And I just loved that you kind of knew where it was going to go, and you were just waiting for this full-blown unhinged female rage to explode. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what? Considering this is a YA horror, I didn't feel like it read YA at all. I really enjoyed it. I became so attached to Maddie as a character. She has, I mean, apart from the fact that she's getting bullied in school, she has an awful life at home as well. And yeah, I just really enjoyed the whole experience of the audiobook with the podcast element. And now we are on to my 5-star reads, and I'm going to start this section off with my first 5-star read of 2026, which was Intercepts by TJ Payne. I absolutely inhaled this book. It is a horror book, and it's all about human experimentation gone very, very wrong. It's about this guy called Joe, and he works in this facility where they experiment on humans by depriving them of all of their senses. And then they expose them to certain things while their senses are extremely heightened, like painfully heightened. And all of these test subjects start going insane, basically. Do you know what? There's so much more I want to talk about, but none of it's in the blurb. And I don't want it to end up being a spoiler. Do you know what I mean? But basically, the work that Joe does in this human experimentation facility starts following him home. It starts getting dangerous, literally like life or death. It is, honestly, this book is absolutely bonkers to read. Like, the concept in itself is absolutely terrifying. The body gore was chef's kiss in this. Things we love to hear. It was just so fast paced and addictive to read. I couldn't put it down. Like I said, I absolutely inhaled it. I also absolutely loved the ending. And you know when you finish a book and you're like, that was just so bloody satisfying to read? That's exactly how I felt after reading this, and I couldn't give it anything less than 5 stars. This is so underrated. So underrated. It has been sat on my shelf for bloody years, literally for years. And I'm very, very mad at myself that I haven't picked it up sooner. Highly recommend. My next 5-star read was Bitterthorn by Kat Dunn. And you know what? After reading this, Kat Dunn is fast becoming one of my new favourite authors, and I am even more excited about her new release coming this year. I was excited anyway, but now I've read this, I literally cannot wait to get my hands on that book. So this is set in the town of Blumwald, and it's all about a witch who every generation visits the town to claim a companion to take with her. Now, the companions she's taken in the past are never seen again. Nobody knows what happens to them. And the witch is due to make an appearance. Then we've got our main character called Mina, and she is absolutely fed up of her lack of future prospects in Blumwald. She's given up, and when the witch arrives, she volunteers to go with her because she thinks, well, I'm not going to have much of a future here anyway, so I may as well take my chances and go with the witch. Now, this is another one I did on audio, and I actually highly recommend the audio. The narrator was outstanding, very much like Hungerstone. I did that on audio as well, which is Kat Dunn's other book. The writing in this is absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning. I felt very similar to when I read Hungerstone. I felt like I was there. So Mina goes back with this witch. She just starts learning about what the witch is doing, and I don't know, it's very gothic, very fairy tale-esque. Kind of gave me like Sleeping Beauty vibes a little bit. And honestly, I was just so invested and so immersed in this story the whole time I was listening to it. And do you know what? I've said a few times, I only usually listen to audiobooks while I'm working. Even when I'd finished my work, I just sat there listening to it because I was desperate to carry on with the story. Like, I cannot fault it. It's the first book of the year that made me cry. I've also got a quote that I highlighted. I wrote it down in my notes because I did it on audio. And it says, "Love was complex, conditional, not all sweet, but not all bitter." Do you know what? There were so many quotes that I really wanted to read out, but I can't because they're spoilers. I actually think this is a YA book. And it's the reason I've put it off, because I'm like, oh, you know, sometimes YA books can be a little bit young. Didn't read as YA at all. Loved both the main characters, loved the story, loved everything about it. Highly recommend. My next 5-star read was Body of Lies by Jo Callahan. This is book 4, the final book in the Cat and Lock series. I was very, very lucky to be sent an early copy. This book doesn't release until May. And when this book landed on my doorstep, I cannot even begin to tell you how excited I was. I literally screamed out loud. And yes, I know, I need to get out. I need to get a life. I am an absolute sado, but I'm proud. I'm proud to be a sado. So for anybody that isn't familiar with the Cat and Lock series, they are police procedural books which follow Cat, who is a human detective, and Locke, who was an AI detective. So you've just got this human versus AI element because you've got Cat, the human, who trusts her gut instinct. She trusts her feelings. And then you've got Locke, who is the complete opposite, and he only trusts facts and logic. And you've got kind of like the battle between the two of them. Kat she's hilarious as well. Do you know what? They kind of give Tilly and Poe vibes a little bit, because Kat is really funny. She's got a dry sense of humour. She's very sarcastic. But Locke, being an AI, doesn't really get the humour. And you've got like Kat trying to explain the jokes to him and everything. And I think when your detectives have personalities, this is what makes them work so well. Do you know what? I actually said this to Michaela. We spoke about this when we did our book shopping vlog last month. Oh my God, I absolutely loved that day out we had. And we were talking about this, and I said, the main plot of this book is an MP has been murdered and she's been displayed in public, and Cat and Locke must figure out who murdered her, basically. And whilst I loved that plot and I was very invested and very interested, the reason I loved this book so much is because of Cat and Locke. I was just desperate for more of them. Even though, like I said, I was invested in the murder plot, I was more invested in Cat and Locke's story. I can't really say much more about Cat and Locke's story because I don't want to give anything away at all. I went into this book completely blind. Like I said, it's not being released until May, which means there are very little reviews. I've stopped reading reviews before I read books anyway. But yeah, I went into it completely blind, and I just, oh my God, I just didn't want it to end. I think because I knew that this was the last book in the series, I treasured every single word in this book. Like I don't know, I was reading it and I was like, no, I'm coming to the end and I'm not going to have any more Cat and Locke to read. I just feel like I've been on this whole journey with Cat and Locke and I miss them already. My next 5-star read was Guess Again by Charlie Donnelly, and this has made me really excited to read more by Charlie Donnelly. This was so bloody good. It's another one that I absolutely inhaled. So it's all about this 17-year-old girl that went missing 10 years ago. Her body was never found. The case has gone cold. And this girl's dad wants to enlist the help of Ethan, who is currently working as an ER doctor, but he used to be a detective and he had a 100% solve rate. So they are hoping that they can convince Ethan to look at this cold case in his spare time and keep his 100% success rate going by solving the case. You've also got a separate storyline which follows the man that is in prison for murdering Ethan's father, and he is somehow connected to everything. And you know what? I just absolutely loved it all, obviously, because I gave it 5 stars. The guy that's in prison, I can't actually remember his name now, he is an absolute psychopath. And I bloody love me a psychopathic character in a book. I mean, we listen and we don't judge, okay? Some of my favourite serial killer thrillers are where the serial killers are so outrageous, like their behaviour is so outrageous that you just love to hate them. Do you know what I mean? It is fast-paced, it is gripping. I've said this previously, but the way Charlie Donnelly layers his plots, oh my God, this was so intricately plotted. I would love to know what goes on inside his brain, because his books, when it comes to the ending of his books, you know, like when you usually get to the point where a thriller book is going to do the big reveal, I don't know if anybody else is the same, but usually I start, like the pace starts picking up and I start racing through it because I'm desperate to, like, for all the answers. With Charlie Donnelly's books, when you get to the reveal point, you have to do the complete opposite, because there is so much packed into the end of his books. You have to slow it right down so you don't miss anything at all, because everything he tells you is relevant to all of the twists that happen. Honestly, I just absolutely loved everything about this book, and I am very excited to read more by Charlie Donnelly. And last but definitely not least, my last 5-star read of January was My Darling Dreadful Thing by Johanna Van Veen. Now, very similarly to what I said about Kat Dunn, Johanna Van Veen is fast becoming one of my new favourite authors. Her writing is absolutely bloody stunning. Like, oh my God, the way she writes her books. I've said this about a few other authors. I feel like her writing just scratches an itch in my brain. You know, like when certain writing styles, you feel like they were written just for you. This is exactly how I feel about Johanna Van Veen, Kat Dunn, Amelia Hart is another one. I am going to film a video this month talking about auto by authors, but honestly, this has made me really excited about Johanna Van Veen's newest book as well, which is coming out this year. So this follows the story of Roos. Do you know what? The only negative about this book is it got really confusing. So the main character is called Roos, R-O-O-S, and she has a spirit companion who is called Ruth, R-U-T-H. And I did this book on audio, and it was so hard to, like, you really had to listen sometimes to whether or not she was saying Roos or Ruth. Don't know if maybe Johanna Van Veen could have given either one of them a slightly different name. But apart from that, I absolutely loved it. So yeah, it follows our main character called Roos, who has a spirit companion called Ruth. And she is the only one who can see this spirit companion. Now, Ruth has the ability to contact spirits. She does seances and stuff. Her mother insists that she does it. It's how they make their living. Her mother's not very nice, to be honest. I absolutely hated her mother. And one day, this wealthy widow called Agnes turns up to one of Roos's seances and they form a connection. And to cut a very long story short, Roos ends up going to live with Agnes. So she goes to live at this crumbling estate. You have got bog bodies in this as well. And there was a bog body in, what was her other book? Blood on Her Tongue. I absolutely loved it. I don't know what it is about this festering rot of bog bodies, but yeah, absolutely loved that. I also loved Ruth, the spirit companion, because she is absolutely unhinged. Like some of the things she says, some of the things she does, she's absolutely unhinged, and I loved her as a character. And you know what? I don't really want to say too much more about the plot because I feel like anything more I say will give it away, but things just escalate. Somebody is murdered in this house. That's not a spoiler, promise, it's in the blurb. And yeah, everything just escalates and comes to a head, and there's this kind of like epic showdown. I just had the best time. the entire time I was reading this book, I bloody loved it. And it's another one that I just didn't want it to end. And yeah, like I said, it's just made me even more excited to read Johanna van Veen's new book, which comes out, I can't remember when it comes out, sometime this year. I can't even remember what it's called either. Bone on the Bone? That's probably completely wrong. Something like that. I'll put it on the screen anyway. But yeah, oh, absolutely bloody love this book. And that brings me to the end of my very first reading wrap-up of 2026. I really hope you've enjoyed watching. I hope you managed to get some inspiration for your own reading lists. Please let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books. Let me know if you'll be adding any of them to your TBR. Like I said, even though I did have a few disappointments, I honestly can't believe I had 7 4-stars and 5 5-stars to start the year. The only problem with that is I'm worried that I've peaked too soon and the rest of the year is just going to fall off a cliff. No, we're not going to be manifesting those vibes. We're going to be manifesting 5-star reads every month of the year and putting it out into the universe. If you did enjoy watching, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up, hit the little hype button, and if you are new to my channel, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button as well. I would absolutely love it if you decided to stick around. And yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there for now. I feel like I've been talking for half of the day, to be honest. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Happy reading, and I'll catch you all next time.